G'day, mate. This is John Dorney, and you're listening to the Sirens of Audio podcast.
I have walked in darkness. I hold in my hands that which you most fear. You are not worthy of my embrace. And yet, come closer. The time of my triumph draws near. I step onto your world, and I grind it to dust. I bring Sutekh's gift of death to all humanity. Big finish. We love stories.
G'day, audiophiles. This is the Sirens of Audio, the show that explores the universe of Doctor Who and the audio medium. I'm Dwayne.
And I'm Philip. G'day, Dwayne. G'day, audiophiles.
G'day, Philip. How are you? It's been ages since we've got together like this. It feels like it anyway.
It has, and I can tell you're in nice weather because you're wearing a t-shirt and I'm in a jumper and still feeling cold. So obviously you're still up north.
I am still up north. I'm in the top end, very close to Darwin City now, actually. So not too much longer and I'll be making my trek back home to freezing cold Tasmania. Not looking forward to that. So on that note, I do have to apologise because our episodes may be a little bit stagnated over the next few weeks. So you may have noticed.
Or staggered?
Staggered. Oh, staggered is better. Is a better word, isn't it? You're not stagnated.
You're thinking about crocodiles in stagnated waters, what you're thinking about.
Yes, exactly. Plenty of those around here, I can tell you. So bear with us as I make my way back to Tasmania. The episodes will go back to the usual regular schedule when I get back home. But today, because we have recently had the season 1, season 14, season 40, I think everyone says that when they refer to this season of Doctor Who, we had the return of Sutekh to our television screens after... How many years was it, Philip, since Sutekh was on our screens? Was it 40 almost?
36, yeah.
So almost 50 years.
Almost 50 years.
Since Sutekh appeared on our screens for the first time. And so with Gabriel Woolf, and for some reason in my head that Gabriel Woolf had passed away, and I was very surprised to see him in the credits, that he was doing the voice of Sutekh, because I thought, boy, that voice sounds exactly like Gabriel Woolf. There was a good reason for that.
It was Gabriel Woolf. And sounding
That's
amazingly the same. It's just astounding.
It's great, isn't it? So I thought in honor of that, we would have a look at some of the big finish stories that they have done featuring Sutekh. And so we're going to talk about the 7th Doctor box set. Well, it's not really a 7th Doctor box set. It's a Bernice Summerfield box set, which features the 7th Doctor. They did a few of those box sets, and it's called The Triumph of Sutekh. And we're also going to be talking about the 4th Doctor stories that appeared as two stories in one of his box sets too a few years back, called, the 2 stories are called Kill the Doctor and The Age of Sutekh. So we're going to talk about those very shortly. But before we do, Philip, do you know what?
Know what, Dwayne?
We have to jump down the rabbit hole. It's very swirly now. Here we go. Did you notice that the rabbit hole's changed and it's swirling?
I did notice that. I have to watch the episodes to see what you've done in them. Because I was amused by the little Sutekh moment you had in one of our recent podcasts.
Okay, so my rabbit hole topic for today is related to the TV episodes and the episodes that we're going to be reviewing, and that's to do with plot. When you go into, I want to know, Philip, when you go into Doctor Who, are you interested in flashy, whiz-bangy things that give you the feel-good vibes with no substance, or are you looking for that plus a bit of plot to go along with it? Or in the case of Big Finish, some of them are so intricate. Is there times when you feel there is too much plot that you've got to sort of re-listen to and examine? It's all there, but maybe it's too much. Do you feel like you want a bit of light and fluffy at times, or what? That's my question to you.
That's a good question, and you've just thrown it on me totally like that. I mean, I thought it was going to be quite easy at the beginning because you gave it a bit of a straw man thing in terms of flashy, nothing. But in terms of plot, what do I like in plot? I like it depends. Maybe it depends what mood I'm in. So, or what tone I'm expecting. I think you need enough plot to actually fill the time up. And I guess what I don't like is unnecessary padding. So in terms of plot, so I actually like tight plots. I like stories that progress logically from step to step to step. I like cliffhangers along the way. So I like moments. So I think I think a well structured story grabs your attention straight away. So you need something that happens immediately to grab your attention, and then you need moments throughout the story that keep your attention there. So as I think I think my ideal Big Finish story at the moment is about 45-50 minutes. I think that's enough time to get enough plot in. Though one of the things I do appreciate about the original Doctor Who show is the fact that you had lots of episodes actually gave you time with the characters. And because I love spending time with the characters, that's okay. So I mean, the Stranded series, which I didn't start off liking that much, grew on me because I actually enjoyed spending time with those characters, and particularly anytime the Eighth Doctor, the Eighth Doctor with his companions. I just love spending time with them, and not much has to happen. Charlie and the Eighth Doctor's the same. I actually don't mind what they're doing because I just have fun with the characters. So if you like the characters, you can get away with a lot less plot. But if you haven't got particularly likable characters or characters you're unfamiliar with, then you need plot to keep you engaged. So what do I think about plot? I think okay, so I've now got my answer together. I'm happy with less plot with characters I want to be with, but with characters who I don't know or just don't want to spend time with particularly, then I need plot to drive it. There you go. That's my answer, I think. What are you thinking about plot, Dwayne?
Well, okay. Let me start by saying what I like about most of Big Finish, and that is the fact that even if I get to the end of a story and I don't have much idea of what's gone on in the story, I am 99% confident that if I go back and listen to it after I've had a good sleep, or if I'm in a different mood, I'll be able to pick up the threads, or maybe even pick up a little bit more that I missed the first time around, and I'll understand the threads that bind the story together. Um, uh, in comparison, recent television episodes you cannot go back and watch them a second time and have any confidence that any plot is going to be there that you've missed, because it's obvious that there isn't any. So, but that's my personal view. A lot of fans may love it, which is great, and they may make up certain plot elements to fit what's left out as you go through the story. But I don't enjoy that. I like to be satisfied with the story. I'm there to be taken away by the story. I'm not there to have to work to make up the story in my own head. I find it frustrating, irritating. And so I think there has to be a plot. There can be as many light, fluffy, flashy, wow moments as possible. But if there's no substance behind it, it doesn't stand up to repeat viewings or listens, in our case, where we listen to a lot of audio. So it's very important, I think, or the most important. Your characters are great. And I think you are right. There doesn't have to be as much of a plot if we're engaged with those characters and they're having lots of, particularly in audio, that one-on-one banter and bits of humor, and you don't have to have that in-depth plot. But if there is something that I don't understand, I like to be able to go back and find out what it is. I'm not getting that with the TV series. I do get that most of the time with Big Finish.
Mm. There's a place just to sit back and enjoy the ride. And I do think there was a couple of episodes this season where you could just sit back and just enjoy the ride. But there is an issue with sometimes when you do go back, you do actually work out it's been a bit of a straw man that you followed. And we'll probably discuss it a bit soon with the Legend of Ruby Sun and Empire of Death as we talk about Sutekh. Um, but yeah, sometimes there's more there. I mean there's a couple of episodes that really have had me thinking, and I've been thinking actually there's some really clever stuff in there and some postmodern ideas and some really really clever ideas. And there's a couple of episodes I thought were actually really fell flat. And when you go back and just think about what they've done, as I said, I think we're about to talk about one of them. It's kind of failed because it didn't have enough ideas behind it, and it
Yeah,
just,
no,
just
great
the
ideas
logic.
is one thing, but you've
Yeah,
got to have something to glue the ideas
yeah.
together.
Oh,
Uh, uh,
but sometimes just miss the logic. But we'll chat about that in a moment. Where I'll talk about where I think the logic is missing dreadfully.
uh,
It fails.
Absolutely.
Mm.
So, on that note, let us crawl up out of the rabbit hole, and we're going to talk about the Big Finish episodes featuring Sutekh. But before we uh, give you a rundown, we're going to start with the Seventh Doctor one because chronologically, as far as Sutekh goes, it's the Bernice Summerfield Seventh Doctor box set that comes first in the history of Sutekh, according to Big Finish. So we're going to deal with that one first. But before we do, let's talk about what we know about Sutekh so far, Philip.
Yeah. Well, I just thought it'd be a nice place to start. I After watching Legend of Ruby Song, I immediately went back with my son James, and we went back and we watched the Pyramid of Mars because I thought, oh, I really want to just I love the Pyramid of Mars anyway. It was just a good excuse to go back and watch it, and I haven't watched it with James for lots of years because with some of my kids we watched through the entire run of Doctor Who from Unearthly Child onwards,
Yep.
and so it's been a long time since we watched the Pyramid of Mars together. So it was really great to watch that. And then, of course, the Tales of the TARDIS came out. And I watched the new version of the Tales of the TARDIS with the shortened version, which I think was probably cut a bit too much. And the outrage was they've taken away the hand of Sutekh, which is the funniest moment in Doctor Who ever. I can understand why they took it out. I just thought it was funny that they'd done it. So in terms of Sutekh, what did I find? What an amazing character he was. And I think I'd forgotten, in terms of opponents for the Doctor to face, Sutekh is really one of the big, big ones. He's godlike powers, and in fact, he's so powerful and so mighty that they kept him contained in a chair, locked in a force field, almost powerless, for almost 4 episodes. Because had they actually released Sutekh on the world, then all that could happen is destruction. And that's not much of a story. Wiping out everything, and then we'll talk about that in a moment, is probably not a good thing. So I think part of his menace, and his costume is so amazing, the mask is so amazing, the paper mache head isn't quite so good when they take it off, but it's still freaky enough, and there's enough moments in there that make it worthwhile. But the
Did you
story
like the
just,
head wobble in the Tales of the TARDIS version? They
yeah,
made it wobble.
yeah.
That was
Oh, that
interesting
was a,
addition.
yeah, it was an interesting addition. But in terms of enemies the Doctor has faced, Sutekh is probably one of the greatest ones. And so I think the fact that he couldn't be freed, and said, all he's able to do is stand up, step into his time tunnel, and that's it for him. The Doctor ends him. And so, yeah, so what was your initial impression of what Sutekh was like at first?
Well, it was one of the stories that I had missed on many occasions through my time watching repeats. I didn't get to see it till a lot later. I don't know if I may have missed it until I eventually got it on video cassette, and it was an omnibus edition, I think, on video. Yeah, I remember getting it on beta. Bought it from a video store that was selling off old things, so I got it secondhand.
So how old would you have been then?
Maybe 14, 15, something like that.
Okay. Yeah, so I would have been 10 because I first started watching Doctor Who in the run through with the androids invasion, and
Yeah,
so it came. Oh, is that before or after Pyramids?
it's after.
After, okay. Well, I saw Pyramids on my first run through, so actually, I must have been Terror of the Zygons I came in on. I must work that one day, because I just started watching Doctor Who, and Pyramids of Mars was one of the first shows I saw, and
Hmm.
freaked the life out of me, but loved it. So you were a
Yeah.
bit older on Beta, yep,
Oh, but still absolutely sensational. I love that historical setting. The BBC in those days could always do historical settings beautifully, better than
yeah.
anyone else. Um,
The costumes are
and
amazing.
it was really, it was a really claustrophobic story. And I had read, things in the Peter Hoening books, The Key to Time and The Celebration, about how wonderfully menacing Gabriel Woolf was as Sutekh. So I was listening out for that, and boy, was he ever, still is.
Mm.
And so that, I mean, he carried that whole character just with his voice, and it was virtually untreated in both the Big Finish ones we're going to talk about and in Pyramids of Mars. It was just his menacing voice, and I thought it was sensational. I love I loved the relationship between the Doctor and Sarah, how that worked. The I think it was a pretty shocking moment when the poacher got
Yeah.
squeezed to death by those mummies. And I was actually surprised they left that in the Tales of the TARDIS. Actually, I thought that might have been one scene that they would cut because it was too.
I don't think I'd seen that till I got it on video, because I'm pretty sure that was cut from the Australian version. I don't think the ABC showed that scene. I'm pretty
I
sure
think it might have been. I think it might have been cut out of the omnibus video too, because I don't remember seeing it either until much later.
Mm. I remember
So
watching it again the other day, and thinking it's just not that familiar scene. So I just don't think I've seen it that many times.
yeah,
And it's sort of like when I watched Caves of Dazani. Every time we see all the things that were cut because we lost about 5 minutes,
yes, it was.
it still surprises me. Like, oh, I'd forgotten that was in it. Oh, I'd forgotten that.
I wish I had my off-air recording of Caves actually, because it was some made it quite a bizarre story to watch with all those cuts. Um, but yeah, Pyramids. A lot of people say Pyramids is it's their favorite of all time, and I never quite felt that way. I was more of a Talons person. That was my go-to for
Talons,
historical.
robots, Genesis Alex. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, they were the biggies. But Pyramids was always up there, always one of them. So, um, yeah,
So just
my
the
my
character
early.
Sutekh. So just menacing. Anything else you want to say about the character?
Um, I think the way Tom Baker acted off those scenes in the tomb really made him seem completely menacing. The way he could just glow his eyes, and the Doctor was just in agony, in twisted agony, and his voice was still calm, saying, "I'm going to crush you, you miserable insect," and all that kind of talk. It was a very, very menacing character. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so let's bring forward to, well, first the Legend of Ruby Sunday, which I really enjoyed the episode. I found it was building tension all the way through. There was unknown information when they go into that 3D room, whatever it's called, the mirror room, and suddenly something appears on the TARDIS. I thought all that was very, very clever, and I was waiting to see how it unloaded. And then when Susan Twist, who we've been following, finally she revealed herself. I was trying to work out, actually, was that Sutekh? Because I couldn't quite work out, was she supposed to be Sutekh? But the whole episode was just built tension. I thought it was a wonderful cliffhanger. Like, probably one of the best, well, it was the only cliffhanger of the season, but one of the really great cliffhangers. So I loved the episode. And then finally, the next episode, Sutekh is finally revealed as a big dog on the TARDIS. I must admit, I hadn't thought that was Sutekh. I was assuming that was some sort of projection, and I was always waiting for Sutekh to appear. I think Sutekh in his costume, in his mask, as a human figure, the Osiran, was more terrifying. And so having a puppy dog on a TARDIS, it was great digital effects. Colors were the wrong color. It should have been green rather than red.
That's right.
The voice was amazing. But the thing that struck me was Sutekh's free. And so, where with Pyramids of Mars, Sutekh had to stay contained because if he was free, what was going to happen? And so at the very beginning of the episode, you have Sutekh free, and of course, Sutekh does what Sutekh does and just destroys everything. That for me is immediately where things kind of went wrong, because once Kate's dead, Rose is dead, the little kid on the tricycle with guns. Why would you have 12-year-old guns? Never mind.
Well, at least he didn't have a screwdriver. That's much more dangerous.
Once you've actually killed off all those characters and you've killed off Ruby's mum and you've killed off other family, then you know there's going to be a reset, which is kind of okay. You can kind of live with there's going to be a reset. You just wait to see. You just hope it's going to be done well. But for me, Suit actually lost his menace, and the other thing was, how can the Doctor possibly defeat someone with his godlike powers? And to be perfectly honest, sticking him on a leash and dragging him through time when he spent the last hundreds of years, thousands of years in the time void anyway, that's where it fell apart in terms of, I guess it's partly what we talk about plot. It needed more substance, and nothing in that last scenes made sense. It was fun to watch, it looked colourful, but how death plus death bring life, that doesn't make any sense. So to me, it fell through, and why he brought life by dragging through time tunnels, that doesn't make sense. How he was then killed by the time corridor doesn't make sense. It was just a bit disappointing. I think, and also it's being a puppy dog being dragged on a leash. So there was just so many things there that I thought was a shame. So having loved the Legend of Ruby Sunday, having that second part where so many things fell apart, to me was a bit depressing. And as I said, Sutekh, in the end, well, he wasn't very powerful, was he? Because he could just be leashed and dragged off. What did you think?
No, I was very quickly disengaged by the story. As I talked about plot, there were things in there I had no idea what was going on, and you can't go back and find out that you missed something because there's nothing there to miss. Like using the leash and the spoon of all things. I still have no idea what was going on with the spoon.
Or why suddenly the Doctor's on a planet with someone surviving? That I thought I must have fallen asleep or something. I went back and watched it again and still don't quite get why the Doctor was there. And yeah, none of that makes sense to me.
No, it doesn't.
It was well acted. It was a nice scene, but
it was beautiful.
I don't know. I just don't know how we got there.
Yeah. There were some really, really good scenes in the episode, but overall they made next to no sense. As far as Sutekh goes, though, yeah, the best parts of Sutekh in Pyramids of Mars was when he was talking, and particularly when he was talking with the Doctor. So there was no real talking from, a couple of lines and maybe a few dog growls here and there.
Yeah, and a swiping paw. I mean, seriously?
No.
Yeah.
And it was explained in a single Tales of the TARDIS, where the Doctor said that Sutekh was like a man. He has evolved into a Titan. I don't quite understand why. You can't do, it's okay to, I always was impressed by RTD's ability to write explanations for things in one line that made sense. But this was an explanation that was less of making a story plot point. It was more of making an excuse. So no, Sutekh should not be a Titan. He shouldn't even be a god, really. He should be a
siren.
No, Osiran. He's an alien. He was viewed as a god by the Egyptians. That's why the Egyptians culturally appropriated the Osiran, stuff. So, it was not good. And for Sutekh to be there the whole time and be suddenly interested in the question of who Ruby's mother is, ridiculous. There were so many more important things through the thousands and thousands of years, not to mention all the things that happened to the TARDIS over that time, being exploded all over the universe, and all the different things, different TARDISes being in the room at the same time, because he wasn't just in a different dimension, he was actually there, according to the logic of the story, because it was the perception filter that he had used to make himself invisible. So
And as
he wasn't.
Susan twists are being deposited all over the universe over thousands of years, then
Yeah,
why wasn't it until this season that we started seeing them all? It's a bit like Clara keep rescuing the Doctor. Sometimes you put a plot point in, you got to go, why have you done that? There can't be
mm,
thousands of Claras rescuing the Doctor because we would have seen her before now. There can't be
yeah,
thousands of Susan twists on every world and every time, or we would have seen them before now.
yeah.
I mean, it's trying to make an arc, which just you shouldn't be trying to make. Just make good stories that don't need to fit together. There doesn't need to be a big climax at the end. Just each story can be good, and you can have. I think there's a few mistakes there.
All right. So on that note, then let's talk about the big finish stories where Sutekh has appeared, voiced by Gabriel Woolf once again. We're very, very privileged and fortunate to have Gabriel do these stories. And we're going to start off, as I said, by looking at the Bernice Summerfield box set. That was the second New
It
Adventures of
was.
Bernice Summerfield box set, which featured Sylvester McCoy as the Seventh Doctor and Sophie Aldred as Ace. And I'll just go through the blurb and give a rundown of each episode in that set, which is the Triumph of Sutekh. Episode 1 is The Pyramid of Sutekh by Guy Adams. Professor Bernice Summerfield, archaeologist and adventurer, has discovered a pyramid on Mars. Inside, she finds her old friend, the Doctor, is fighting a battle with the Osiran god Sutekh. It is a battle he's losing. Episode 2 is The Vaults of Osiris by Justin Richards. Egypt in 2015 is an unsettled place. The trade in stolen antiquities is a murky one, and it's about to get a whole lot worse as an ancient and terrible force enters the market. Episode 3 is The Eye of Horus by James Goss. Ancient Egypt is enjoying a golden age, peace, prosperity, and a powerful pharaoh. But something is moving through the sands. A forgotten god requests an invite to the feast. And episode 4 is The Tears of Isis by Una McCormack. Russell Cortland prophesied the world would end on Tuesday. No one was more surprised than he was when it did.
People of Mars, this is Bernice Summerfield, broadcasting on them, hopefully on an emergency frequency. I'm trapped in a pyramid. Yes, a pyramid. Roughly 4 kilometers southeast of Colony Sector 5. My guide's dead, killed by... Look, all you need to know is that Egyptian gods were real. They came from Feister Osiris, had terrible powers. And Sutekh, the nastiest of the lot, has just come back to life in the middle of your war. Hello? Anyone? Got a death heading your way. Stop fighting. Send help. Because the only man who can help is...
Why do you still run? There is nothing more that you can do. Return to me. I will allow you the gift of seeing my rebirth before you die.
Can I just start off by saying how wonderful it was to pretty much get straight into the action with Gabriel Woolf as Sutekh. He was there within like a couple of minutes of the story, and that has you hooked instantly with his beautiful voice coming into your ears there. So that was my first impression of that, and I went, wow, he's in there. There's no build up. He's in there straight away. So Sutekh is someone we know who he is. We know he's going to be there. So let's throw him in straight away. Love that part of it.
Yeah. Well, I think I'm a huge Bernice Summerfield fan. I've loved, Big Finish has often trapped me into new series. I came in only planning to buy Doctor Who and listen to Doctor Who, and then along the way, they've tricked me into buying other stuff. And Bernice Summerfield was certainly one of those series I had no intention of listening to. She wasn't canon. I didn't care, and then I got trapped. I started listening to some of them, and they are just such good stories and so entertaining. And of course, these box sets came about because that's kind of taken Bernice on a number of journeys that had ended, but also her ratings weren't great. And so Big Finish along the way, Big Finish had done different things with Bernice. There'd been a couple of seasons of Doctor Who monsters they'd brought in, like the K1 robot, which we'll be reviewing soon, and other bits and pieces. And they kind of thought, this is the original character of Big Finish, because they couldn't get the rights to Doctor Who. So they started with Bernice Summerfield, and it was the quality of their work with Bernice Summerfield. The BBC said, okay, you can have the rights to Doctor Who. So they love this character. Gary Russell in particular loves this character. And so Big Finish have always been very generous in keeping her alive and keeping seasons alive. But they do need to have sales, and they do need to make money with what they produce. And so they decided that the way to make money was to do the new adventures and to bring in other characters with Bernice. And so the box set one had also Seventh Doctor and Ace and the Daleks. And then when they came to design this box set, they went, well, what we haven't really explored with Bernice much is the fact she's an archaeologist. And they thought about archaeology. And of course, when you think about archaeology, you immediately think Sutekh. And so in a brilliant stroke, Big Finish said, let's bring Sutekh back. And now, I don't think, you're saying he may have appeared in a comic strip before we were off mic? Sutekh really hasn't appeared much at all, has he, before this?
Not really. Not really. I think but he had appeared in a bunch of audios by Magic Bullet, who were the same company that did the Caldor City audios. But they were sort of I think they were more going back into the history of Sutekh pre-Pyramids of Mars kind of era. So that was...
I would love to listen to those, and we should have a review of those, because...
I think we should. So Faction Paradox it is.
Faction Paradox. So I will get hold of those and have a listen, and we can talk about those, because I like doing other ranges. Just, hey, love Big Finish, but there's other good audio out there as well, and we need to keep exploring that
Especially
audio.
Magic Bullet. They do some very good, high-quality stuff.
Yeah, so I think the quality of the character and because Sutekh is such a powerful character, it's hard to use a story. It's hard to bring him into a story, because all he will do is wipe everything out, which is what we saw when they brought him back in the new series. So Big Finish had this difficult thing to do with, how do you bring back Sutekh and not have him wipe out everything straight away? And here we have a box set. So, as you say, he appears straight away. Well, how do you think they did it? How do you think they did in terms of bringing Sutekh back? And how did they make sure he didn't have to wipe out anything, Dwayne?
Oh, it was excellent the way they brought him back, that he was kind of a consciousness rather than the whole physical alien. So this whole episode, he's virtually trying to recreate a physical aspect of himself throughout this. So
it's a flesh loom, isn't it? There's a
loom, which is a reference to
Longbarrow, isn't it?
Lungbarrow, yeah.
Lungbarrow, yeah.
So that was interesting.
I mean, I always love Guy Adams' writing. I think anything Guy does is brilliant. And,
yes.
I think what he's done so successfully here is, I think if we're honest about the TV series, the weakest episode is the fourth episode. And I think people who know the history of Pyramids of Mars, Robert Holmes wrote it. It's credited to somebody else, but the reality is Robert Holmes wrote it under a pseudonym, and he ran out of time at the end. And so the fourth episode is kind of Death of the Daleks again, Excellent City, a series of not so complicated traps. But what Guy Adams has done is he's taken that setting and he's actually made the traps more worthwhile, more complicated, and taking you down a whole different route. And so you've kind of got Raise the Lost Ark now, Bernice being
the archaeologist,
and spoilers. There are spoilers here, by the way. If you've ever worked out already, it's old. Of course, Sutekh has taken over the Doctor, and so he hasn't got all his powers. He's still limited, but he's trying to create a body for himself, but isn't there. But therefore, Sylvester is able to play both Sutekh and the Doctor and be uncontrollable, which just adds so much to the complexity of the character of Sutekh, which is why it's so well. And Bernice is just sensational. Lisa Bowerman is such a great actress. I mean, I think she's a wonderful director as well. But when she's playing Bernice, she has so much heart, but she does humor, which is so funny, but also does fear really well. But they even upgrade things like the mummies. One of the sad things about the TV series was we lost the mummies, such an iconic character. But here they have them back in. What do you think about the mummies in this story?
Well, that question on the mummies brings me to a very interesting point that I wanted to bring up, and it's Steve Foxen's sound design, It is absolutely incredible. I haven't heard much of Steve Foxen lately. I wonder what he's been doing. Um, but he does the music on this, which is minimal, and the sound design. And it was somehow I can't really articulate how he did it, but when I heard when they were talking about the mummies being there, or the servicer robots, which is Osiran servicer robots, is their correct designation. I knew they were there in the sound, and when there were lots of them, you knew they were there too. And he does. I don't know what you thought, but I instantly went looking for who the sound designer was as I was listening, thinking, who's done such a great job at these robots? They were fantastic.
So actually, Steve's done a lot recently. The Sixth Doctor's Trials of the Time was about to come out, but he's just done. He did day 2 of the Seventh Doctor Adventures, the last,
Ah, yeah,
which has just come
yep,
out. He's done lots of Star Cops that have just been released. The Doctor's Queen Dilemma he did, which I adored that. But actually, lots of Star Cops he's been working on. Yeah, so he's busy. He's still there working hard. The actually, you know what's interesting about? I just realised this because one of the mummies they actually use because they give the mummies voices, and so they bring back Stephen Fuel who played Jason
it's actually one of the
Kane.
Guardians. So it's actually one of the Guardians from Pyramids of Mars at the episode 4. So there was the Guardian of Truth and Lies, and I think
Yes,
this one's actually supposed to be the Guardian of Lies that ends up hanging out
he
with.
he he's the Guardian of Lies, and she forgets that along the
Yeah,
way. But it's played by Stephen Fuel, who played her husband and then divorced husband in the series, who she fell back in love with and then was murdered horribly by, yeah, complicated. Watch listen to the Bernice Summerfield series. He's not credited in the cast, so I'm actually going to I might write off to Nicholas Briggs. I'm not sure whether Nicholas realises that he's been left off the cast list somehow, but he's definitely in it because he gets interviewed. But it was interesting
absolutely.
choosing to bring back her husband, her ex-husband, as the voice of this mummy. So they give the mummies, as I say, it's guarded, but still a mummy, just with gold. But
Well, I
bringing
think
back
the
his
original
voice.
idea was that it would be Benny's voice coming back at her. And I think
Yes,
Scott Hancock that came up with the idea of, well, maybe we should bring back Jason and put his
yeah,
voice in there.
it's a
Great
great
idea
idea.
because it was a great way to revisit all that angst of Benny's, and it made for some really really interesting interplay between them.
Yeah, if you read the books and listened to the CDs with Betty and Jason, they're great stories and great characters. And Jason has a nasty end, which I didn't believe. That I actually didn't believe he could possibly be dead, and I kept waiting for him to be brought back, and they don't because he really is dead. Because you can't just reset the button all the time, even though other shows do. But all up, I thought it really successful. It was Raise the Lost Ark. It was the 4th episode of Pyramid of Mars done properly. Bernice uses the traps to wipe out her enemies. I think she has a line in terms of, for other people they're dangerous, but for me they're weapons. When it comes to archaeology, traps in tombs, which was a
Although
lovely line.
we didn't mention the cold open either, because even though Sutek comes in very early, the cold open actually features Benny discovering a sarcophagus and the doctors inside saying, I bring Sutek's gift of death, and that's how
Sizzle,
the
sizzle,
story
sizzle.
starts.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely fantastic
yeah.
opening to the story. Which if you're a fan of the Doctor of the Seventh Doctor, particularly season 26, and then into the books, we get that manipulative sort of Doctor who knows more of what's going on than we do, and he's got some dark plans going a lot of the time. Well, this is one of those stories.
Yeah. I
Mm.
think our listeners know that we have a huge preference for audio stories in some ways, often over the TV shows, and it's often little things that happen that make us love it so much. And so for me, this box set, the reason why I love it, and I believe it was more successful than what we just saw on TV, because it didn't have the budget or the special effects, was the fact that it actually respected Pyramids of Mars and brought so many elements of Pyramids of Mars of what we love back. And so you have the Guardians, you have the mummies, you have the Gift of Death, you have the Doctor laying his hands and being able to boil people with his touch, with like we saw in Pyramids of Mars. And so because we have those special moments in a show that we love, using them carefully and selectively and well in audio, I think makes the story more powerful and brings back the characters in a more powerful way. Which is part of the reason I think this box set so successfully. We haven't got time to talk about every episode in great depth. What do you want to raise from Sutekh and the other things from the other episodes, Dwayne?
Well, every episode is set in a different time period, so I think it's established by the end that we're in some kind of an alternate timeline. Because at the end of the first episode, Ace turns up. I was looking at the cast list, going, "When's is Ace in this? Oh, Sophie's listed there. Where is she?" And she comes in right at the end. So then the story switches over in the second episode, which is called the Vaults of Osiris. Is it?
Votes of Osiris, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So
I don't think
that's
Sylvester's not in that one though, is he? Is that right?
yeah. I
And,
don't think so. I think this is mainly
yeah,
there's a bit of
and
Benny, but
and
mostly
Sutekh's not in
Sophie.
either.
That's right. That's right.
So once again, these box sets let them play around with the form all the time, which is
Yep.
part of what I love about it.
Yep. But and every story is in a different time period as well. So this one's more present day, Bolts of Osiris, where they go and find, ultimately they'll go and find another Osiran, Isis, who has a bigger plot to play towards the end of the story. Then James Goss is in there with his quirky humor in the Eye of Horus. Some really quirky dialogue throughout that one. Very typical James Goss. Um, I was a bit confused about the technology side of things. I guess that's where it's becoming an alternate timeline where there's technology that's being used in there that shouldn't be in ancient Egypt, Philip.
Was it a siren technology they were using?
I think it was, yeah.
I think that's
Yeah.
why once again how they get away with it. There's still some siren technology playing up.
Yeah. Yeah. And then really good story at the end, the Tears of Isis, which talks about a lot about doomsday cults, and really, when I was talking about plot before in the rabbit hole topic, Philip, there is so much in this that you could easily miss it if you don't concentrate. It's one of those ones.
Mm.
So I'm sure if I went back and listened to this, I'd get more out of it. But the resolution of the whole story, we find out that yes, the Seventh Doctor is trying to trap Sutekh and get rid of him, and well, not get rid of him. He's trying to trap him in a bit more of a time loop than he did before.
Because what I love
Um,
about this is it feels like it needs a reset because Sutekh destroys the whole universe, or so it seems. Because the
yeah,
whole plot is the whole universe is destroyed. There's just a small group of people being left that he's wiping out one by one. And Sutekh believes he's destroyed the whole universe. We believe he's
but
destroyed the whole universe. But
but
the
what an
Seventh
amazing
Doctor,
resolution!
yes, and
Yes,
you don't need a reset because the Doctor is in control of the whole situation, as the Doctor always is. He's
particularly
played
the
his ti
seventh.
he's played his timey-wimey game, and he's taken a group of people and he's moved them boom, to a different part of time, where at the end of the universe, and so they all believe, and Sutik believes
Well, it's
that's
actually at the time of the solar flares. I think it
yeah.
is. Yeah.
Well,
So
was it okay?
Ark in space
Uh,
type era. Yeah,
yeah, and
Sontaran
so
experiment era. Yeah.
once again, it feels like you're going to need a reset because Sudek's destroyed the universe, and you realize he actually hasn't because the Doctor's
Yep.
manipulated things. So, as I said, sometimes writers can come up with really clever, creative ideas that don't mean you've got to just hit a reset button. And this is a
Yep.
beautiful example of a whole group of people who and Sutekh, as I said, and then once again, Sutekh finally comes to full power, but the Doctor has trapped him. And so,
Yep.
but the fact that it's taken 4 episodes of different situations, different complex, and if you haven't listened to this, yes, a couple of spoilers in there, but listen to it all because it is so cleverly played and so cleverly interwoven, and each episode adds to the picture and is important in the final setup. But how do
Yes.
you defeat an enemy that's almost as powerful as a god? This box set shows how to do it.
Yep. Absolutely. I agree with you.
Yeah, and like I said,
100%.
listening to this again over the last 2 days, I was just smiling constantly because it was witty dialogue, it was great characterizations, it was a Doctor being his manipulative self and being a real pain, and Benny not knowing what's going on all the time, and of course the danger is the companions, Ace and Benny are going to muck things up because the Doctor just doesn't tell them what's going on properly. But every story adds new dimensions, and Sutekh is still scary and still powerful, but ultimately the Doctor is the Doctor,
Yes.
and has planned for the defeat, which is what I just love about it.
Yep. Absolutely. And even though the Doctor is willing to sacrifice himself, he is saved by one of the other characters, which is interesting too. So, of course, the Doctor survives. We'll let you. We won't spoil every little piece of it, I guess.
No,
One interesting. Sorry, you go on, Philip.
I was just going to say, one amazing cast. Nicholas Briggs, Guy Adams gets to play in it.
I was going to just bring that up.
Okay. So, I mean, Guy Adams is actually a really wonderful actor. And so as much as he writes some wonderful stuff, and
beautiful voice.
He's got a lovely voice, and just having him in it was just marvelous.
Yep. Which is leads us very nicely, speaking about Guy Adams, into the next couple of stories that we're going to talk about, because he wrote them both. The two Fourth Doctor adventures that feature Sutekh, actually set after this, chronologically, for Sutekh. And I'll read a blurb for both of these. The first one, Kill the Doctor, of course, by Guy Adams. The TARDIS crew arrive on the planet Drummond, an Earth colony in the far future where everybody uses handheld computers from morning to night. Rania Tuma is the mastermind behind Rene.net, the data stream network that tells you everything you need to know. Anyone who's anyone uses Rene.net. But ever since Rania was young, she's heard a voice in her head. That voice is the key to Rene.net's success. And it's voice the Doctor might find familiar. Whilst Leela chases a thief, the Doctor looks into the planet's data stream and something evil looks back. A subliminal command flashes through Rene.net to Drummond's entire population: kill the Doctor. When the entire planet is against you, where can you possibly hide? So that's Kill the Doctor. And the next story that follows on is called The Age of Sutekh. The world has changed, and the evil Osiran Sutekh is returning. As blood sacrifices and worship boost the strength of the god of war, servicer robots walk the streets, killing those who are not converted. Leela is working with the homeless population of the city, while the Doctor cooperates with the police. A brutal battle is ready to begin, and if the Doctor and his friends fail, everyone in the galaxy will perish.
Coming soon from Big Finish Productions, Shadow of London.
The sound of death.
The sound of trouble, that's for sure.
Look, it is coming after us.
The Bad Penny.
This is very gravely serious, or it will be if I do nothing about it. Hello.
Haven't we met before? Kill the Doctor.
Oh, hello. Are you shop security?
The Age of Sutekh.
This is now the world of Sutekh, and however ornate, however decadent, it's a world of death.
Who is Sutekh?
Last of the Osiran.
I will not be so easily dismissed. I am Sutekh, the Destroyer.
Was that the radio?
Big Finish. We know stories.
All right, Philip, how was it for you, the Fourth Doctor returning to Sutekh and a sequel for him of the Pyramids of Mars?
It was great. I actually made the error, though, of listening to this first, because I assumed this had come before the Bernice Summerfield episode. And I didn't know within minutes, because as soon as the Doctor and Sutekh start talking, Sutekh mentions the fact that he's met the Doctor recently, and the Fourth Doctor has no memory of that, and then makes a throwaway line to Leela that's going to be in my future. So I realised very early on I'd got them in the wrong order, but by that stage I was so caught up in the story I didn't care, and thought, order doesn't matter, and it's good enough to see the Doctor's order. It was once again great to have the Fourth Doctor. Now I actually don't know when this was recorded. It came out in 2018, but it doesn't say actually on the website when this was recorded, which was probably several years earlier. Because it's interesting in terms of, I don't know how much it was preempting how out of control we were going to get with our phones and social media, but it was certainly making a very strong commentary on that power.
It was.
And once again, what do you do with a character like Sutekh who has godlike powers, is that you can't let him free on the universe, because if you do, it's all over. And so, we now know, taking up from where Bernice ended up, he ends up going into like the internet. And so it's his power is in how he can influence, the power of lies, the power of social media. It's kind of the Russian state making us all think what we want to think on, sending us bad information. But nevertheless, the threat is there and obvious, and that makes it all the more chilling. And once again, this, because it's a two-part, it's a two-part story. It's got the most amazing cliffhanger. The question was always going to be, once you change or wipe out the entire planet, which is what they do for the cliffhanger, how can you bring any characters through to you? So they're very clever. Can I say, having John Dorney in this was just lovely, because big friend of ours, John Dorney. But he's such a
I think
good
he was
actor.
my favorite. He was my favorite guest cast in
Yeah.
this story.
So it's so
apart from Gabriel Woolf, obviously.
Yeah, it is so great when he gets to play. And of course, the thing about his character is he can't work the technology because his fingers don't allow him to work it. So he can't be influenced by what's going on in the whole network. So he's free.
What's he called? A corpse finger?
Corpse finger, which with my phone at the moment, I can't work it with my finger on my phone, but I'm having trouble with my phone. So yeah, just once again, only a small group of characters. It's this epic story on a planet-wide scale, and it's told through only 4 or 5 characters.
Yes,
which is just, once again, the brilliance of Guy Adams. How he manages to give this an epic tale with hardly any characters is just brilliant. But once again, what I love about this story is, so a bit of a spoiler, Sutekh manages to recreate the Osiran world, and of course, it's not cultural appropriation to Egyptian culture. The thing about the Egyptian culture is Egyptian culture appropriated to Osiran culture. It's one of the, I think, mistakes I think was made by Russell T Davies, where he talks about cultural appropriation as if Doctor Who was culturally appropriating from the Egyptians. No. The whole point of the story was the Osirans came with their technology and with their look and with their statues and art and things, and the Egyptians used that to build the pyramids and to form how they looked and form their masks and form their mummies. So if it's cultural appropriation, it's actually the other way around. It's the Egyptians appropriating Osiran technology.
Bit of Osiran, bit of Jaggeroth,
Bit of Jaggeroth, yeah. Doctor Who aliens have just changed the course of history really badly. And there's no need to apologise for it in the past. But what's really powerful is the fact that, this whole world, and it's the descriptions of this world and the Osiran world being recreated by just the power of Sutekh's mind, once again, allows Sutekh to be unbelievably powerful, but without just wiping everything out. Though it kind of gets wiped out, but it gets more transformed into him being the god he wants to be, or with the godlike powers he wants to be. A great tale, and had me gripping, and once again, lovely dialogue. And there's car chases in it, well, speeder air chases, don't know what you call it, which are just really, it's hard to believe they can do an audio so well, but the sound design and the script just carry you there absolutely brilliantly. Once again, sound design done by Jamie Robertson. He's done a marvelous job.
He certainly has. It's very different, isn't it, from the last from Steve Fox, and the sound designers are almost as identifiable as the directors. We've had lots of conversations about them, but Jamie Robinson's done, I think, pretty much all the Fourth Doctor stories, hasn't he? So
done an awful lot of them.
Yeah. So this is kind of his range, and I like it. I like it very much. Yep.
Yep.
But the more music, there's much more music in this than in the Benny box, which you get the comment of that. So it's more musical along the lines of Dudley Simpson style. So it's not exactly like Dudley Simpson, but similar. And you've got the quirky humor of Guy Adams, the interesting performances of people like John Dorney. John Dorney and Tom Baker just spark off each other so nicely.
They do. What a good companion Tommy is.
Oh, absolutely. It really does fit. And I'm a huge fan of the Graham Williams era. It's firmly set in Graham Williams, which may be a bit of a contradiction when you get a character from the Hinchcliffe era into a Graham Williams kind of setting, but it just works. Just works
Yeah,
for me.
yeah. I think Barnaby Edwards must be playing 15 or 20 characters.
Easy.
I was trying to work it out, but every time, because I worked out that every time it's a character, it's not one of the mains, it's Barnaby. Like, and he
Yes.
does all of them, and so he just the most amazing range of voices and ages and pictures, and he's amazing. And Sophia Miles is also in it. It
I
is.
think when she was interviewed, she said it's Sophia Miles.
Well, I haven't interviewed her yet, so when I interview her, I'll make sure I get it correct. So Sophia Miles, yeah, it's just an amazing
This
cast of
this was the
people.
first one she did. Has she done any others? I think she may have done one or two others, but I think this was the first one.
No, this is all she's done so far for Big Finish.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, and it really wasn't that major a role in lots of ways. It's actually the John Dorney character that
Yes.
really wins the whole show. Is it Kendra? Which one's the poor one? Is that Rani or is it Kendra? Who's the other?
Oh no, that's Eleanor Crooks,
Yes,
the poor one. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, to be honest, it's actually Eleanor Crooks and John Dolney who are the two who really stand out for me. So I
Yes.
mean, Sophia Miles is playing the sidekick baddie, which she does a fine job doing it. But I think because Gabriel Woolf is so powerful, he does kind of dominate. I mean, you got Gabriel Woolf and Tom Baker together. I mean, it's actually interesting contrasting doctors because Sylvester McCoy in the background plotting, very clever, comes in with all the punchlines, and then delivers the knockout blow. But with Tom, you've got these two forces of nature, huge personalities, huge voices, going head to head. It's a very different Doctor Sutekh relationship. So it's fascinating seeing how different doctors manage to dominate, or in the end, how they manage to win. But once again, I mean, Tom's very happy to use his companions to achieve what he needs to do by, I'll be a distraction over here, you do what you need to do over there. Divide, conquer, and be powerful. Because he so powerful. Yeah, the advantage of the Fourth Doctor is he uses his companions on his side, as opposed to the Seventh Doctor who manipulates his companions into doing what he wants, but doesn't tell them
Yeah.
what's going on. So
Yeah.
it's very different storytelling for those different Doctors.
And Leela's painted very well too in this story, in a very Graham Williamsy kind of way too, helping the underclass. It reminded me a bit of Sunmakers, that kind of
Yes,
thing. So that's painted really well, and I'm sure Louise would insist that Leela was doing something like that. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, I was thinking there were moments of Dot and Bubble. In the recent series of Doctor Who, there's moments of
Yeah,
Dot and
that's
Bubble
right.
in
Yeah.
terms of the technology and
Now that you
being,
mention it.
yeah. So
But
yeah,
this was done well.
this was sorry, Dot and Bubble was my favourite of the season. I adored Dot and Bubble. I thought it was so clever and brilliantly done. Anyhow, we'll talk about that later. Anything else you want to add in terms of these two episodes?
No, I don't think so. I think that they brought Sutekh back in a really interesting way and remain faithful to the source material, Pyramids of Mars, and have been very respectful to it and have done an awesome job. Both of these sets are done by different teams, Big Finish teams. So you've got Nick Briggs directing the Fourth Doctor sets at this time, Scott Hancock and James Goss doing the Benny stories, or Scott Hancock was directing the Benny stories at that time. And there's very, very different styles, but that character, Gabriel Woolf, comes right through. It's interesting listening to his interviews. It might have been on the Fourth Doctor sets where he's talking about his choice in Pyramids of Mars to not be over dramatic, to bring Sutekh's voice down to more, a quieter, kind of less operatic. Did you listen to that interview, Philip, where he's talking about that?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, it was
they were actually quite
fascinating.
interesting. Yeah, they were very interesting interviews afterwards.
Mm. So I'd recommend, if you haven't got these, get those. If for nothing else, the interviews with Gabriel Woolf. They were really interesting to listen to. So yeah, glad we talked about them.
Yeah, me too.
It's not the only time Gabriel Woolf has appeared with Big Finish. He has done a couple of non-Sutekh stories, and we've never talked about them. One of them is one of my favourite Sixth Doctor stories, Arrangements for War, which is, I believe, when we were talking with Colin Baker, it's his favourite audio that he's ever done.
Yeah, I cry in that one.
I think I still do. I haven't heard it for a couple of years now, but it is a tearjerker and a very, very
Powerful
different
performance.
story. Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a good story.
And there is a sequel to that called Thicker Than Water, which has the Sixth Doctor returning with Mel and Evelyn Smythe, who has stayed on. Spoilers. And I think we should probably talk about those two stories at some point because, Gabriel Woolf is certainly a voice that is worth listening to again and again.
Yep.
But I also agree with you that we should talk about the Faction Paradox stories too, featuring Sutekh. So let's do that too.
I'm in a mood to listen to them. So
you're in a mood?
I am. I've got so much stuff
new
to listen.
there.
I've got so much stuff to listen to. It's not funny.
I know. Tell me about it. Anyway, I've got thousands and thousands of kilometers to drive soon, so I should be able to do that. Where if my wife will allow me to put my headphones on.
Good luck with that.
That's always, I know. She likes me to talk. All right. So should we, have you been listening to anything else or just these? Should we recommend something else that we've been listening to?
I'm happy to recommend something else I've been listening to. So I said, I am a bit behind. And I don't think I've recommended this or mentioned this. Missy, haven't mentioned Missy yet? The new Missy box set?
I don't think so. I started listening to that too, but I haven't finished it yet.
So I've listened to Missy, and wonderful. Like it's interesting stories because none of the stories are particular. So none of the writers, there's Davey Quantick, Freddie Valdosta, and Lou Morgan. Lou Morgan's a bit more familiar, but not really authors I knew, but really captured the spirit of Missy really well. I just think Michelle Gomez is just astounding, and knowing that she's actually recording these over in America, where everyone else is in the studio back over here, I just think it amazes me how well she can do and carry it off. But yeah, so if you love the Missy stories, they're great. I've also been listening to Dark Gallifrey, Morbius.
I haven't started that yet. How is it?
So, not at all what I expected.
Right.
So the first two, actually, I haven't listened to the third episode yet. I want to listen to the first two parts, which it's kind of set on like a sailing ship being shipwrecked at sea. It's a time ship in the time void, but it's the whole idea of ships and stowaways and etc. So it's kind of a pirate ship, but so it wasn't at all what I expected. But
okay,
I got into it. But there's a lack of Morbius in the first episode, really. I mean, he's there, but not huge. But it's a growing presence over the three stories. So not at all what I expected, but I'm looking forward to the third part and see how it ends up. And Tom Baker's in the third part, so that should be fun. I'm just swamped at the moment by so much stuff to try.
There's just more and more coming out all the time, isn't there?
Oh, I know, and also just you know, I like my politics as well. So I'm very big into following podcasts and things on the UK election and the American election and Australian politics as well. So that's been consuming a bit of my time, and also just planning some events that are coming up.
Yes, we haven't mentioned them yet, so let's talk about them.
Very briefly. So I think people should be aware, in September, we have Fraser Hines and Katie Manning touring Australia. We're still nailing down some of the locations. We're thinking we may actually change one of the locations and add a different city in. So those of you who are listening, that's first
Stay tuned
new
for that.
knowledge. Stay tuned for that, and hopefully by the time this comes out, you'll... when's this coming out? Pretty soon.
Probably, it'll be tomorrow.
Oh, well, there's no way we've made an announcement yet. So those who've managed to listen through to the end, congratulations. Little bit of gossip is the fact that we're looking at like adding an extra city into the mix. And so wait for an announcement, hopefully in the next few days, about that.
Very good.
So very excited about that. But been chatting with Fraser and Katie, and they're very excited and looking forward to coming out here. And we have the next three sets of guests lined up. as well, but we won't be announcing them for another month or two, probably.
Very good. That's something exciting to look forward to.
Yeah.
I'll be home when you announce those, back home in Tassie.
I know. I can't,
You'll see me looking very cold.
You will
Very
be,
cold.
You won't be in a t-shirt. That's for sure.
No, well, there'll be one there, but you won't see it.
No.
All right. Great to catch up, Philip. It's been great talking about these audios. It's been too long.
It has been.
Feels like.
Yeah, been great talking about Sutekh. What a great character. Robert Holmes, brilliantly created and so versatile. And just marvelous to see what Big Finish did with him.
Very good. So until next time, we'll catch you all later.
Yeah, bye everyone.
You've been listening to the Sirens of Audio, Sutekh the Destroyer on Big Finish Audio, with your hosts Philip Edney and Dwayne Bunny. Theme music by Joe Kramer. Check out our live event details and all other info on the podcast at sirensofaudio.com. Got some feedback? Send your email to sirensofaudio@gmail.com or DM us at any of our socials. Our handle is @AudioSirens. Thanks for listening, audiophiles. We'll hear you next time.